Of course, first off, I'd like to say thanks so much to Jim that I should be here addressing the Produce Association or the New York Produce Show or Global Trade Symposium. My office was astounded and said, why you? But one of the things I've noticed about people in the food biz is, in comparison to all the other trade shows I've been to, they're the friendliest and the happiest people. I think if you contrast that with people that are in the automotive industry, IT, finance, that we're selling something that all the customers feel good about 3 times a day or more. And I think that leads us to be happy. And one other thing about the food business is we're the only legal addictive substance sales organization in the world. Most everything else that's addictive is illegal drugs, sold sex. To give you a little introduction about our company, we're based an hour outside of Tokyo. I've lived half my life, a bit more than 30 years, within 5 miles of where we are, of where this photograph shows. That would be our offices. We felt since we were selling food initially mainly from America, we should have an American barn, so we built one. Our company itself imports around 300 different items from all 5 continents. We're vertically integrated in that we usually move it into our own warehouse in California, bring it over, move it into our warehouses in Japan, repackage it, sell it onward to stores. We would be dealing in both bulk, frozen, chilled, and branded. We started as a home delivery service of just my wife and I selling garbanzo beans, salsa, tortillas to the foreign community. We are now around 45 people involved in 3 divisions. The majority of our business is selling wholesale to other wholesalers or wholesale to other retailers. I myself trained in animal and veterinary sciences, joined an academic institution to do air pollution and toxicological studies on ozone and sulfate salts, left the sciences, became a stockbroker with a major firm in New York, left that and decided it was time to see the world and spent about 2 years on the road traveling and ended up in Asia in the early 80s. There I became involved in logistics in a deep way, restoring and exporting Japanese art to London and the United States. When you export Japanese ceramics, you've got to protect them, so we put them in wooden shipping cartons and sent them to America or London. And after we sold the product, we would fill those boxes with ethnic foods that we missed. This is just myself and my business partners, and ship garbanzo beans, hummus, peanut butter back to Japan. And everybody wanted it. And due to a number of different reasons, one decided to stop traveling the world selling antiques and live in Japan and start importing food. And we were without a specific game plan, except we brought in products that we recognized as being very good. And our business has grown over the years. But enough about me. I was also forgetting to punch this button. Ah, yes. Now we have it blank for a little while. I want to set the tone about Japan. And I'm going to tell you a few stories. There's a firm in Japan called Fujiya. They are nationwide. Cake shops in every town. You want a birthday cake, you want a cream cake, you go there and you buy it. One day, one of their long-term employees used 60 liters of milk, which is a drop in the bucket for what they use, that was 1 day past date. The news came out, possibly an employee that felt, oh my gosh, 1 day, what happened here? The company ground to a halt. They closed every store temporarily to assess how they could have made such a mistake. They recovered. I mean, they were a nationwide brand, but they came close to the edge of not recovering. Why? Because they violated the understanding that best by date means best by date. Japanese are pathological. Possibly they were channeling Woody Allen. Everything happens in their stomach. The goodness and the badness of their life will be in their stomach. So remember that when you set your best by dates. And also, take a different product. Tetra Pak juice. The best by date on the top was printed in a crooked manner. It seems sloppy. The importer said, we can't sell, or the retailer said, we can't sell this. Look at the attention to detail here. So all of it had to be returned or disposed of. We import peanut butter, made in America, quality product. If the label is slightly folded over in the corner, size of your fingernail or less, for sure the shopkeeper can't accept it. Now we can sit there and glue it back down, but what is acceptable is what's called the best there is. Pristine, perfect, presentable. It's a triple jewel, both in Buddhism and in Japanese food sales. Or at least, if not pristine, exactly according to your documentation. And I'm going to spend a lot of time today talking about documentation. It's really all that matters. Let's say you've come to Japan. You've got a few names, you've been sent over, and you're going to try and do some work there. You will probably talk too much. The most important thing in Japan is not the size and the price. Those will matter in some meeting you have at some point. But in the first 3 or 4, it hardly is a factor. The factor is you. And you are representing your company. And how you do that. And by excessively talking about how good you are, da-da-da-da, and how we have the best fruit in the world, da-da-da, everyone just glazes over. Because the purpose of that meeting is for you to convey to them that you're actually interested in what they need. And so it really, I know this sounds like basic salesman 101. You're supposed to sit there quietly, let them ask the questions, and you ask questions of them trying to understand what you're doing. This is true whether you're an overseas salesman or a domestic individual selling, one Japanese selling to another person. They're sitting there trying to decide, after you leave the room, the question will be, I don't know, what do you think of them? Can we work with them? That's the only thing on the table in those first few meetings. So, I know we're all gregarious, especially Jim and myself, but try to keep it under control. What's the most important thing that is happening that you do want to convey is that you will answer any question they ask, that you will provide them with a level of documentation, and that you will answer the questions that make no sense to possibly you as a professional in the orange business. We import dried fruit. We're asked again and again, are we using a gas-powered drying oven or an electric-powered drying oven? Now, of course, that has no bearing on the final product, but they love the detail. And for the staff member to be able to go back and add 5 pages to the internal documents as to what they do is important. My suggestion is don't sell a commodity, sell a food. The video we just watched was a great example. I mean, I'm never going to go out and buy a clementine without thinking about, oh yeah, that was really interesting what they said. The picture there is me in India visiting a chili field. And it happens to be a chili field that is not near any other spice fields. It's not in an intensive agricultural zone. I'm there with the man in the blue, is a 20 years history within helping Indian farmers grow food in traditional manners. All of this is a story. All of this matters in that it increases the chance, in my eyes and in the eyes of my customer, hold it, maybe he actually has good Indian chilies, because the reputation for India in spices is of extremely adulterated product. Now, America has a much, much better reputation, so maybe you don't have that same behind the 8 ball, but you're there to convey that you're serious and you'll give them all the information they need. And when they come back and ask it again, you will treat it with equal seriousness and answer it again. In all these questions, I deal in a lot of processed food products, maybe 7, 10 ingredients. And to import that product into the country, we need to disclose the list of ingredients and a general percentage. This is a governmental request. It's not required on the label of the product you sell. They're not trying to steal from you. And it's essential that you make the documents add up to 100. The number of times I've gotten things that say 99%, and the government official says, what did they leave out? And I said, well, they didn't leave anything out. You know, you round the numbers up from 5, down from 5. And they say, oh, no, it's got to equal 100. So make your product, make your information, make sure it adds up. The upside of all these documentation requests is that if you ever finally do get the business, you have prepared enough to handle governmental applications. And I want to summarize what happens on a food import in Japan. I don't think it's that different as to the steps, but I think as to how long it takes. Initially, there's an organization in Japan called Ministry of Health, Labor, and Welfare. They approve every food to import every time. Meaning the fact that you are importing peanut butter 12 months of the year, one shipment every month, will not change the documents that you have to provide. One, they rotate their staff continually, but two, maybe things changed. And so it'll be not a difficult document. Happy to share it with anyone here. It's one pager, fills in basic information, except for the question where they say method of manufacturing or how is it handled. And you'll have to come up with a set of answers for that. For something as simple as a raisin, it can be pretty simple. For a Tetra Pak of soy milk, it's very complex. You put that document in, you'll get it back. You'll get it back in probably 3 hours. Yes or no, and then they'll have a discussion. After that, assuming it's an agricultural product, you'll take it, it'll have a quarantine. Phytosanitary, as was mentioned earlier, is much less of an issue than it used to be. Quarantine will come by, and sadly, this photo only shows one person. Actually, no, we took out the person. That would be the front end of our container. All the products at the front end are labeled clearly so that people from the testing laboratory can see it, pull it out, and they will sit and sift it and make a report. And of course, if it has bugs, it's okay as long as they're similar to the bugs they have in Japan. They're not making any quality call. It's just out-of-town bugs, not welcome, local bugs, quite accepted. After that, customs. Customs is the easiest part of the situation. Once you are classified, I mean, hey, a product as simple as lemons has absolutely no question, it's a lemon. You'll be through there in hours. My staffer recently went to the airport to do 2 separate air cargos. He arrived at 9 o'clock, went through all the steps I just mentioned, and he was loaded and out by 1:30 in the afternoon. And maybe that's a little bit, that's better than most companies because we're doing all the steps ourselves. And because we're vertically integrated both in our supply chain but also in what we do in Japan, we were out in 4 hours. Even you using a customs broker will probably be through in 3 days. I know for a fact, having worked in Taiwan, that what I just described does not describe Taiwan. Things take, we find, longer there, and they're less accepting of paperwork. One of the things about Alishan is that one of the things we explain to our customers is that we have a direct relationship with almost everyone we buy from. Most of our Central Valley growers of dried nuts and dried fruits I've visited on a yearly basis, some of them for 20 years. The people we sell to look at that and go, oh wow, that's really good. That means he really knows the product. They so admire tenacity and focus. So like if you are a clementine seller and you know clementines from one end to the other, they will say, oh wow, this is a smart man. I want to work with him. One of the things, I've just been going on and on about documentation, and you've got to answer a lot of questions, and I'm sure sitting here going, oh my gosh, this goes on again and again. I got to get a sale. We expect to close in 6 months. We're not going to put more money into that. But assuming that you do get successful, and you actually ship to Japan, one of the things that you will receive is a country that works logistically at a level that I don't think you've ever experienced. That right now in that photo, it's showing the trucks of one of the 2 trucking companies we use every evening. They come to our building, we load up with product. And now Japan is not a big country, but it takes 12 hours to drive from one end of the main island to the other. And 80% of the nation is covered by these delivery trucks. And they'll take one box, they'll take a pallet. And if I were to say that schedules are maintained as if their life depended on it, that we can book of a single box, a delivery between 10 o'clock and 12 o'clock, between 12 o'clock and 2 o'clock, or say, please don't come till after 5 o'clock. We can ask them to collect the money or not collect the money. We can organize refrigerated shipping for a surcharge of probably $5 a box. I should say, even though we import multiple FCLs monthly, most of what we sell is in the 1 to 20 case variety. There are only a few customers that are always taking it by the pallet load. And in Japan, it's a case business. Actually, for part of our company, it's a per-piece business. We have high numbers of stores that take, the order will be one of these, one of these, one of those, 5 of those, and 7 of that. But that's not your problem. You're just getting it shipped to the country. Last point about what you'll also get is the country will, we have a range of part-time employees. They're coming in to put on labels on our product. This isn't something I requested. They took a jar of jam, and we have to put an import label on it showing, manufacturer's name, list of ingredients, shelf life, etc. They naturally put it on so that when you picked up the jar and looked at it and tilted the lid, the label would be in an easy direction for you to read. And if we're talking about rectangular labels on square boxes, they will naturally be put on straight. The dedication of the people you work with will be equal to the dedication or documentation or follow-through that they demand or request of you. I don't think I mentioned that we are for 90% of our product line would be organic and vegetarian. Actually, 100% is vegetarian, but 90% is organic. We're a natural food importer. And the story of organic in Japan is it didn't exist as a legal concept until the mid-90s. In America, we of course had organic certification developing in the early 90s through third-party groups, not governmental. Japan came onto the field around the year 2000. They passed a set of rules, but they didn't enforce them, which is typical. They pass a set of rules, the industry knows this is coming down the pipe, but no enforcement happens. At some point, they did enforce it as one of the larger importers of organic food. They said, oh, could we come over for a visit one day? And 3 of them showed up with photo equipment, data relays, so they wouldn't have to rely on our phone line. And they were sending photos back and forth to the head office as they showed us that anywhere the word organic appeared, please oversticker that, since the products from America would have a difficulty in meeting the organic standards. So we had a simple box of tea, slightly larger than this, with 5 stickers on it. We tolerated that, or we accepted that, in that we had product placed, so it was just a matter of making less money, but getting it out there. And over time, the USDA was successful in renegotiating equivalency between the 2 countries, so that as of 2 years ago, America was on an equal footing with Europe as to the ease of importing organic food products and their acceptance by regulatory authorities. Throughout this whole period, the Japanese consumer didn't really care about what the government was doing, that they had more than accepted overseas certification. I'm actually involved in 2 companies in Japan. One is what I've just described to you. The second is a food banking system. Second Harvest Japan. I'm sure all of you are in the food business. You all know food banking. You're familiar with the business model here. And its massive importance to a high percentage of the people in this country. Japan has an equal poverty rate of around 16%. And a group of us introduced food banking in Japan around 12 years ago, 13 years ago. And of course everybody said, what the hell is that? But there's actually 3 businesses within a food banking system in Japan. There's an organization that raises money. Most of our money comes from multinationals, the financial industry. Quite often foreign firms based in Japan looking for a CSR opportunity. And the second half is food manufacturers. And we've never actually asked for food donation. We have never asked for a food donation. We don't send anyone around talking to the companies, hey, you know, like, do you have short date or broken things? But over the years, we held lots of seminars and lots of discussions with food manufacturers explaining, just as you are as an exporter coming to Japan hoping to do business, what we do, how we do it, why we do it, the safety valve, the safety enhancing issues that are available. And over that time, we've had 700 food companies sign up saying, hey, we'd like to donate. We'd like to have a place to get rid of our product rather than paying approximately 25 cents a pound to dispose of it. 25 cents a pound really mounts up. So we have massive amounts of food coming from domestic food manufacturers. And the third part, and this is a bit strange, is the hardest part for us to develop is where can we give the food away? The country is poorer individuals, people lacking food security are very hesitant to accept it. And so we've had to really struggle to do that. I think we all recall, and the pundit was very good at talking about some of this, and we had donations from a number of American food manufacturers. When there was the Fukushima incident 3 years ago, the tsunami, the nuclear meltdown, and the earthquake, for a few weeks up north, things were radically disrupted, meaning there was lots of hungry people on the street or in the evacuation centers. Our food bank sent up a truck. Let's say we have 470 ready-to-eat curry meals. We pull up at a center. There are 500 people there. It doesn't work. For them, one of the core foundations post-World War II is everyone must be treated the same. And if we have 470 meals and 500 people, that means somebody doesn't get it. And so the person in charge, because that would be a pretty heavy load on his or her shoulders, say no to it. This happened again and again and again, and the people inside were hungry, but oh my gosh, how are we going to divide this? So going out on a limb and making a decision is not a highly developed trait among the people that you would work with in Japan. So when you're there in a meeting, there are a lot of people there because they're going to make a decision together as to whether you fulfill that foundation need of, do I know what he's doing? Will he understand what I need? Will he give me the documentation I need? And will he answer questions after that when somebody says something to me? We've all heard about the customer that comes to file a complaint. And sometimes in America, there are some outstanding issues that the person has. Or maybe they have a hidden agenda. They want to sue you or at least get a $50 coupon so they can get free food the next time. That's not how it happens in Japan. We get plenty of customers bringing things back. But they're bringing it back, and the consumer brings it back to the shopkeeper, and the shopkeeper sends it to the wholesaler, and the wholesaler sends it to the importer. And it is expected the importer will contact the manufacturer to answer the who, what, and why questions. Why did it happen? Can it be prevented? Is there any, first off, is it dangerous? No matter what the problem is, they have to check. Remember Woody Allen? Oh my God, there was a buckwheat growth in my oatmeal. Things may happen. They're motivated. The consumer is motivated by the assumption, oh, for sure we want to improve. Because everyone is aimed at 100%. 99.9 just means you haven't practiced enough to get it right. And so when they come back with these questions about, like there was some damaged product or that product seems to have changed, is just understand they're all on a perpetual self-improvement gig. Recall my beginning comments about Woody Allen and that the world is trying to poison them. It is, though, an incredibly clean country. When you go into the backside of the supermarket, it's very clean, just as clean as the front side. According to CDC and FAO statistics, in America there are 3,000 foodborne, food-related fatalities per year. According to similar statistics for Japan, it's in the low double digits, many years 3 or 5. Okay, America's 3 times larger than Japan. But still, that comes down to about 3 to 1,000. And even ignoring that the statistics are screwed, the food in Japan is treated with the utmost respect. A few other things, and assuming that you're a company that does the same, you have a massive selling advantage, and this is where it comes, that when they ask you the questions and you explain, if you are a company that really, really is into it, and they believe you're really into it, and they will come and see you. Nobody does any business without visiting the supplier, or even visiting the wholesaler. But a few vignettes to show about how Japan is very, very serious about it. The addiction to best by date, which I already alluded to, that let's say we're dealing with product that carries a 12-month best by date. We can't ship it to a store if it has less than 3 months. And if it's a large store, large supermarket group, they'll say we want at least 50% of the original shelf life available, and a few will try and pull a 2/3 rule. We, as I think the earlier man from England, you got to say no to some business. It's just not worth the trouble. China is a major supplier of fresh veg, especially the leafy greens, the spinaches, and other things to Japan. It's a very, very short logistical hop. A few years ago, it came out through testing by a consumer group that there were high levels of pesticide or some chemical that shouldn't be there. And it mushroomed. It turned out there were other incidences. And you would go to supermarkets and see the big banner. We stock no Chinese products. I went to a Japanese version of Applebee's, you know, family restaurant, you know, standard menu. They had the menu blown up at the front of the thing, listing the ingredients of every single item on the menu and the country of origin or the state in Japan that it came from. Every single ingredient and ingredient of ingredients. There was a minor recall in the UK. A biscuit manufacturer had some product that had a problem. Happened on the Friday. On Monday morning, we get a call from the Ministry of Health and Labor saying, hey, by the way, we saw that you import something from the company that had a recall. And we said, we do? What company? And they told us, and they said, could you check it out? And we said, yeah, we certainly will. And we called the company in the UK, and they said, well, you know, it's a totally different division. You don't buy crackers, you only buy cookies. And so we didn't bother to notify you. But in Japan, they knew about it Monday morning. Every recall anywhere in the world. We deal with a mid-size spice house. They sell spices onward to food manufacturers. No matter what's done abroad as to cleaning or testing for the presence of things that shouldn't be there, no matter who does it, when it gets to Japan, they repeat the whole process. They send it to a cleaner that's exceptional, and they send it to testing laboratories. They are perpetually, as a country, struggling to gain that edge as to safety because the country is convinced they're going to die of something to do with their stomach. So remember that when you build up. Size and price matter. Safety, documentation, and reliability matter more. For all this talk about it, you know, let's do another let's do another lab test, is actually Japan is not logical nor science-based. They view themselves as extremely emotional, and most Westerners as cold. We had as happens in the industry, we had a recall. We had a food item packaged that 1% of the product showed up as having some sign of something on the inside, some visible mold. We knew we had a problem. We tested it in laboratories in 3 countries. We went back to the manufacturer. We visited the raw material sources. And everything was coming back that actually it was completely acceptable as to the level of mold in the product. It was far below any maximum level. And when the mold was present, it was of a harmless variety. And most of our customers, we talked to most of the shops that we communicated this with, were fine. Someone went to, one customer, a direct individual, went to the Board of Health Board of Health called us, said, hey, what's this about this? You know, you got this little mold in here. And we talked about it, and with 24 hours, we were told to recall the product. And so we put out a recall. The fact that there was no, and we said, well, hell, don't you want to see all this data we have explaining what it is and why it's there and da-da-da? They said, that doesn't matter. It's visible. If it's visible, it's a contaminant. Food is not supposed to have contamination. Please recall. So that was logic and science at its best. One thing that I see with my own company and with the outside is an acute fear of change, avoidance of the unknown, and a love of long-term relationships that involve, that make everyone feel comfortable. Hold it, I've been working with this person a long time. So of course that means it's very hard to get into the game. It will take time, but if you do get into the game, it's probably going to continue. Early part of this year, for anyone involved in Pacific trade, I'm sure we know where I'm headed on this. The early part of this year, we had West Coast port strike. In Japan, they were air cargo. McDonald's was air cargoing in full air cargo planes of French fries to maintain their chips. We, as a much smaller company, were also sending in weekly air cargo, bringing in everything from oatmeal to garbanzo beans. That allowed us to maintain our supply line, make sure nobody goes to anybody else. And of course, the store, the people that buy from us knew this, and they went, wow, again, at Alishan, they're really into it. They will do whatever is necessary to make sure that I have product. And those things are appreciated because price will, yes, solve the problem for a week. Yeah, I can go buy that cheap. But everybody there is afraid of the unknown. They're not an entrepreneur. They're not risk-taking because how do you take risks when there are 5 people in the room? Because for sure one person will go, I don't know about that. And everybody would say, well, it's true. We don't know about that. They'll value you being there to hold their hand. Today, the most important point I think I've made to you is documentation, way at the beginning. That if you can respond to the documentation demands and the insane level of questioning that will happen on your product, you have a chance of getting forward to that 5th or 6th meeting and when they visit you to see if you can actually do the business. If you can't, or if you don't want to, or if you realize, hold it, man, I'll go to Jamaica and sell, it's best to go there. The Japan takes a lot of time. There's a saying that when I mention it, every Japanese says, oh, yeah. And that is, you have to sit on a stone for 3 years before anything happens. And we as a company, the first time we did a Foodex, major trade show, other than everybody remembering there was a tall white guy and a Taiwanese woman in the Japanese side selling food, nothing happened. But over time, things happen. It's just really up to whether your organization is willing to commit to that amount of time. So the wrap is, listen rather than talk. Be ready to jump through 1 million hoops. And now these hoops are not, ridiculous. They just want to understand how you grow it, how it's processed, how it's shipped, what are some special facts about it, and how you as a company have been involved in pimentos for 50 years. And they'll go, oh, wow, and your father was into pimentos too. Those things will matter to them. It is never just about the price. And remember, they don't like surprises. In fact, we are all used to, in Japan, in operating on a 24-hour cycle. Person calls up with a question on Monday at 5 o'clock. You can put them off, oh, the person in charge is out, we'll get back to you real soon. On Tuesday, you've got to get back to them. The number of times that I write to suppliers in America or Europe, and it takes a few days for things to happen, drives my Japanese staff berserk. Like, don't they understand? Like, we got to get back to these people. And so we're getting back saying that we're on the case. And that will work for a day or two, just saying you're on the case. But you will endear yourself to these people by working when they're sleeping. They will pay for safety. And I think that would be my closing remark, is safety and reliability matter. this would be part of my company on the deck of our restaurant. And please recall my first comment when I came in here, that I find that people in the food industry to be happy, more relaxed, friendly, and big people willing to talk to little people, etc. So any discussions people have, or if you'd like to see a copy of the I can give you a copy of the document and explain it as to what happens when your product arrives in Japan. More than happy to. So, everybody, thank you. Let's talk. I guess everybody's on the way to Japan.
I see Mr. Verdal smiling.
Okay. Maybe not. Well, I'm available afterwards.
Laurie.
So, you are American, correct?
I am an American.
Okay.
Yes.
So, when you decided to go through the process to get your company going and everything, what kept you motivated to, reach the documentation barrier, the question barrier?
Okay. Now this would be one of the tips also of saying, you want to find some business to do so you kind of have a reason to keep on going through the process. For us, it was very simple. We started to import products that didn't exist in Japan to sell to a completely ignored market. Mail order home delivery of Western-style natural foods. Back then, our customers were mainly foreigners and then Japanese who had lived abroad. And so we were very quickly able to establish a cash flow positive business where we'd buy it and we would sell it and we'd go buy it again and then we'd import it again and we'd sell a little bit more. So I don't think that with my wife and founding partner over on stage right, the left, we ever lacked for the motivation. I've been in the food business. I was in food co-ops in college, so providing food to people who deeply appreciate it is the simplest way to live in life.
Okay. Anything else? Oh.
I just thought of one now. Yeah, you asked a question to every person up here.
On kind of the any successes of any foreign retailers in Japan, and say like Costco in Japan, kind of what is the Japanese view of these foreign retailers? And when Famimi came to the United States, they were going to roll out their Japanese-style convenience stores. Kind of why do you think it never rolled out as big as they thought it would be?
Well, I can't talk so much about why things didn't work in America, because I've been over there for 30 years plus. I mean, when I might have gone to my first Costco store when I was in Japan. That's a little bit of an exaggeration. But in Japan, Carrefour came and collapsed. They didn't last but a few years. Costco came and has exceeded beyond any expectation, and everybody said that, I don't know about this, big sizes and all that, and Walmart is there taking a different strategy. They bought a just below top tier supermarket that was in a problem, and they have committed to the long game, and the firm they bought is named Seiyu, and they're succeeding slowly. Costco succeeded rapidly. And on the subject of convenience stores, now I'm speaking as a Japanese person, American convenience stores are so down market. People look at them and the displays and the freshness of what's in there. Not that they're selling a lot of fresh vegetables, but it's exceptionally lit. My daughter says, man, I come back to Japan mainly to go to 7-Eleven. The food is so good there. And it's, I mean, it is convenience food. It's not organic food made by Master Chef so-and-so, but it's incredibly good. So I think America just wasn't ready for it, but truly, the convenience store revolutionized Japan. It also, Japan was just a licensee of 7-Eleven, and they were just a small thing that has succeeded. I mean, they're everywhere. I don't know what the number is, but it's massive. It's in every single town. So I think cleanliness and convenience, but I know that's not giving anybody a serious answer. Just You want a good convenience store? Come to Japan. They're everywhere.
All right. Well, thank you very much.
Oh, there's one more. The man in the corner.
Sorry.
To you, Jim, I want to commend you for arranging this speaker. It's been utter delight. I've never heard anything quite like it. So thank you.
And I answered all your questions, too.
The other thing I want to do, and I hope Linda doesn't get angry with this, but Linda had a 20-year business selling citrus from Florida to a family supermarket chain. Did all the things you're talking about. They came to do due diligence in the orchards and so forth, and you know all of that. But when the earthquake hit Osaka, the next day Linda was on a plane to go over there to see what was going on, and they were serving soup in front of their stores to people, and Linda was there. And when their son got married, Linda was asked, one of 3 people, to give a speech at the wedding, and the only woman in the building. So there's just so much to it, and it's been a treasured experience for both of us, me tailing along, because Linda was called Alishan, and when I came over, they didn't know what to call me. Finally, it was Jackson. So excuse the interruption here, but
Good story, and it captures much of, back to my point, we all think they're kind of cold, and they all think they're Latin lovers, or that they are very emotional. Yeah, they don't think they're Latin lovers. No, we're Japanese. Okay, Jim, thank you very much. Happy days.